Conflict resolution.
Conflict resolution, or how to avoid conflict with other people, which is a typical problem of everybody. The reason for conflict is because people come from different places, different environments, and they bring with them attitudes which they picked up there. So merely commanding another person, saying to another person, you ought not to think the way you think, does not alter the behavior. So if you really want to get along with people, only when they say to you, what's the best way to put the shovel into the ground? Use your foot. It's easier. But if they don't ask you, let it go. The best way to avoid conflict is not to superimpose your values, even though they're better than the other person's values. Like Roxanne may like cats. I don't like cats in the house because I feel that they're dirty and all that. But anyway, the question is, how much do I like Roxanne? You know what I mean? If she doesn't mean that much to me, I say the cats go or I'll go. All right. When you deal with people, whatever their views are, unless they say to you, what do you think of my views? Then you can give your opinion. Like sometimes Joel may feel that his boss is not correct in his values. If you were to confront him with saner values, he would not understand it. He would resent it too because it's a put down. Do you know what I mean? So when you meet people, they tell you what their values are by the way they speak, the way they talk about different things. Unless they say to you, what do you think of my values? Then you open up. Well, what do you think of the way I use a paintbrush? If they say to you, that's no way to use a paintbrush, that doesn't tell you how. You wipe it on the can or whatever it is, you can tell them. Very few people, unless they're going to school to study aviation mechanics, they go there to learn what this guy has to say. But if one of the students tell them something, they would feel put down. How are you able to accomplish 4 films a day and I can only do 1? Then you can say, because you clean out, you bake the oven, and then you water the lawn, then you go back to your job. You have to stay with each system. Do you understand what I mean? If you get out to do a bridge, and in the meantime you water the roses and trim trees, a lot of things remain half done. I don't say you do that. But if you walk over to Larry and say, don't do it that way, do it this way, you're superimposing your values. They may be right, but you don't superimpose unless they ask you. So conflict occurs when a person doesn't seek your advice and you advise them. It doesn't always occur, but it will. So the way to get along with people is to let them be what they are, unless they say, I don't seem to get along with Polacks. What's my problem? Very few people do that. Very few people, in fact, I've never run into a person and said, what do you think of my value system? What do you think of the way I think? If they do that, and it's sincere, not an ego thing, where they appear to be polite. And if a person annoys you in some way, just say, I don't like to discuss races. I mean, if you want to be a racist, okay, I'm not interested in that. And he said, well, how come you don't see niggers as I see them? You can explain. But if he says, well, God damn it, that's the way I feel, let him talk. Or discharge him if you hired him. You don't want to hear that. We hired a guy. There was a black man up on a pole working on an antenna. And the guy says, I need some rope. He says, tie it around your neck. If you fall, you'll hang yourself. You know, he thought that was appropriate for the black guy. We never hired him again because he was too low grade. To undo that, you have to undo his whole life. And either you hire a guy to put up an antenna or you work on his whole life. Your question is, how different is the person's background than yours? And does the person seek information? And if they did, don't feel like you're instructing them. If you come over and say, Larry, that's no way to use paint remover. Best thing to do is say, I used to do it that way, then some other guy told me another way. They don't like personal criticism coming from you. So you can say, to identify with them, I used to hate niggers, Jews, and Polacks. Now I understand where they're coming from. I don't get involved in that kind of discussion because it can't go anywhere unless the person says, what do you think of the goddamn Mexicans coming in this country? I think the same way about the unloyal Americans that don't appreciate this country, instead of attacking the Spanish people. Say, I find Americans, some of them, to be very offensive, and some to be okay. But you need not get on to the Spaniards, because he has a fixed view of Spaniards. You say there are plenty of Americans that are subversive. He would agree with you as a rule. If he said, well, I never found an American, then get off. If he doesn't want to discuss it, if he feels satisfied with his point of view, the main thing you have to keep in mind is other people come from different places and they see the same thing you see, but their interpretation is different. Unless they call for answers. What do you think I ought to do? If a person has a short memory, make notes. You tell them that once or twice, but not continuously, if they don't apply it. Do you understand? You give people instructions. If they apply it, give them further instructions. If they don't apply it, it means it's just a verbal pastime. What do you suggest I do? My wife likes cats and I like dogs. You have to come up with some story. Let her have her cats if she lets you have your dogs. But the dogs attack the cats. Then condition them not to attack. How do you do that? Get the handbook of conditioning, unless you want to go through that. You know, that's something you go through. Like if the dog growls at the cat, he's wearing a collar, it gives him an electric shock every time he growls. If a dog barks at night, he gets electric shock. You don't have to wear that collar all the time, but when he stops barking, you take it off, then he won't bark anymore. You put up an electric fence if you don't want your cows to go in the neighbor's yard. So the cow gets up against the fence and he gets a shock. Maybe it takes 2 or 3 shocks, then you can turn off the electricity. He'll stay away from the fence. You don't have to do it every night. So in working with conflict, you do it once or twice. You say, it seems to me if you held the drill this way, And first, it would work better. And that's what I found. But if a person doesn't ask you and they're busy drilling and they don't want your fucking advice, you tend to your computer. I'll tend to my drilling. You know, sometimes people don't want advice. They feel they're being put down. So stop giving one another advice. That produces antagonism, unless they ask for it. Now, is this an absolute formula? It's a better way of dealing with people, because you can turn them around by pointing out that the trouble with you is you don't listen to anybody. That doesn't cause them to now listen. They'll go on with their same pattern unless they say to you, am I inattentive? Or do I appear inattentive? Very few people talk like that. That's what sane means. Sane means when a person comes over to you and says, I'm not familiar with the jigsaw, how to use it, then you instruct them. If they come over every day and say, I don't know how to use a jigsaw, watch them and guide them through it. Does that make sense? Do you have any attitudes now about different people that think differently than you do? They think differently than you do, period. Making a comment as you're dim-witted or slow. The trouble with you is you have no imagination. That doesn't alter behavior. It only increases conflict. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, if a person's a very good painter of roses, and you like roses, then you associate with him for that reason. But it's just if you ask me, all the Irish ought to be sent back to Ireland, say, well, I'm not that, I don't feel that way about the Irish, so I'd rather not discuss it. I think there are Swedes that behave badly and some Swedes that behave well. You can say that. He might understand that, but I appreciate your comments. Don't wipe him out. You're a racist. You know, don't wipe him out. Like judges, think if a guy murders a girl and then he cuts her up, then he's very evil. He's been conditioned to that, and the judge says, I have no idea what made him that way. Well, in Arabia today, the judges are very harsh. I think you know that. If a guy's a pickpocket, they chop his hand off. That doesn't stop him if he's got a right hand, unless they chop both hands off. But that doesn't stop him from being a pickpocket. It's a quick answer, but it's not a solution. And they think some Arabs are bad. If you think that a person's bad, or a person doesn't listen to you, while you're talking to them, it means they might be thinking of something else. Why doesn't he mind his own business, or whatever it is, lest they ask you? So in order to avoid conflict, don't generate it. You generate conflict whenever you offer something to somebody that they didn't ask for. Not always, sometimes. Do you understand that? If you want to get along with a person, let them be, meaning whatever they say. Unless they turn to you, say, what do you think of my Swedish background? Then you can talk. So people go to school because they want to learn how to fly a kite or operate a car. So there they go to ask questions. They go there to learn. But if you come at people with your values without asking them, are you interested in a different value system? Are you interested in a nation without war and poverty? Not particularly. Then stay out of it. I believe in a free enterprise system, and that's it, period. And I respect Jesus Christ and the Christian doctrine. I'm not asking you what you think of it. To each his own. You know, that's a guy that, or a gal that doesn't want to talk. Unless your boss tells you to paint the roof first, not the sides, then you either keep the job and paint the roof first. If he's your boss. You can't argue with your boss. Say, look, if I paint the roof first, it's the wrong way. Or what. You don't argue with him. If he says, that's what I want you to do. I want you to paint the bathroom black. Say, that's a terrible color. Not to him. If he wants it black, you paint it black. Whatever a person hires you for, change all the tires, but they don't need changing. You got another 4,000 miles. He didn't ask you what you thought of the tires. You can think privately this man is not very bright, or he has a ridiculous set of values, but unless he asks you, do you understand where conflict comes from? Superimposing your values. You can do it once or twice. If the person doesn't take to it, it means they're continuing their pattern. Unless they come back to you and say, I never can retain that. How can I retain it? Well, do you want me to remind you every time you seem to fuck up? They say, no, that would detract me. No, but or yes, whatever it is. Ask for cooperation. Sharing ideas is what I'm talking about. You're not sharing ideas when you put a person down. When you tell them you're dumb for doing it that. You're dumb for marrying that guy. If that's her choice, she needs a whole different orientation for picking a guy. You ask guys, I'm looking for the girl of my dreams. I'm looking for the guy of my dreams. The girl says, what is the guy of your dream? What are the character? He has to know water skiing. He has to be a college professor. He has to know more than I know about a lot of things. He has to be dominating, whatever. I rarely get that when a person says, I'm looking for the right person. If you don't know what you're looking for, you can't look for the right person. The right person may weigh 400 pounds and not look the way you want him to look. You know what I'm talking about? And be a member of the Socialist Party. So you can't dominate all areas of a person. And so if you have any conflict with anybody, it's that you don't understand what I'm talking about. Is there anybody here that doesn't understand what I'm talking about? I said, if you wish to eliminate conflict, but if you wish to continue conflict, instruct when instructions are called for. And instruct as many times as the person needs. Or you say, in the army, when an officer walks into the barracks, they say, attention, because everything he says they want everybody to hear. I want you all up at 7 in the morning, then he leaves. But he doesn't come in if guys shining his shoes and other guys making the bed. Everybody stops doing what they're doing. And the sergeant says, attention, and everybody goes like that. And then the officer says, lights out at 10 o'clock, and he walks out. Otherwise, you put on KP duty, kitchen police, washing dishes, or cleaning the toilets. They either use punishment, rarely reward, unless you put up your life for your buddies. Then there's the Medal of Honor. Or protect the president from being shot. The guy comes up with a gun, you stand in front of the president, and the guy gets you in the arm. That's far beyond the duty that's called for. So you can give him a medal. If you give him a medal, it makes him feel good for what he did. If you show him in the newspapers, a real good American, Sam Schwartz, guy says, sounds Jewish, doesn't make any difference. He will respect him for what he did. You can ask a person whether they're religious without, are you religious? That face, that's no good. You say, are you religious? Which denomination? I'm a Catholic. Do you fully accept everything in the Catholic doctrine? Yes, completely. Then the door is shut. It's welded. He says, I'm not sure of a lot of things. That's an opening. That goes for any subject. Check for openings before you talk. Is that clear? Otherwise you're going to have conflict all your life because you believe that what you say enters their head the way you want it to. That's projection. When you tell somebody for their own good, if you keep drinking the way you will, you may become addicted. They say, that's great, I never thought of that. That's okay. But if you come at a person who's drinking, and he says, fuck you, then shut up. Just do what you can when they ask you. I hope you got this message. So if you have conflict, even with yourself, here's how you have self-conflict. You put something on yourself. I'm going to finish that today. But you didn't know your grandmother was coming to town. So you went to meet her at the station and shit, I didn't finish that today. Just say, I hope to finish that today. And if you don't, for whatever reasons, you don't condemn yourself. I should have done that all day long. I should not have deviated from that. Or I should make notes, Grandma's coming. Do you understand? You deal with your own conflicts. Because you have conflict with yourself. Should I go to a movie with my sister who only comes to town once a year, and I don't like the movie she likes? Well, you have to, what is it you want of your sister? You want to maintain family equilibrium, go to the movie with her. It's a little pain for 1 hour, but if you want equilibrium in the family, you make a decision counter to your desires. If your mother says, before I die, it will help me if you just attend church once with me, you know, that's 1 hour. A sermon is rarely more than an hour and a half. So you say, well, to keep her at peace, I'll do that. I don't say don't yield to other people. Yield as therapy. Do you know what that means? If you have to do, yes, sir. I tried something at Wright Field. The guy won't let me enter. You drive your car in. To get there, you have to show your credentials. So he looks at it and he says, you can pass. So I says, I can design those credentials. When you open it, psst, switch, blinding acid in your eyes. You know what I mean? I said, your job can be easily done away with. He says, you know, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of it. That's all right. But he's not asking you. He's an inspector at the gate. And if you talk to him, he'll talk to his superiors about you being a danger. Even though you talk to him for his own good. Do you understand? Don't assume anything. You talk to people, and whatever happens is the result, not what you think should happen. After all, I did it for his own good. I saved the kid from drowning, and he beat the shit out of me when I pulled him out of the water, because I didn't know he wanted to commit suicide. Do you understand? Do you want to drown? Yes. Then let him drown. But if you save a person from that, they may kill you. That's why some people, when they rob a store, they shoot the owner and the clerk because they don't want to be identified. They want to make sure that if they're caught, the guy says, yeah, he's the guy that killed the boss. So they shoot people that could put them down. That means they don't know any other way of dealing with the problem. But if you come at with another way, before the event, it's okay. After the event, it's worthless. So self-conflict is expectations of yourself that are beyond your range. Condemning yourself means you don't know enough about a subject you're condemning yourself for. So if you can carry that, it should save you a lot of trouble. What if a guy is downright mean? Then don't associate with him. That's your problem. The guy says, I'd like to kill the son of a bitch. Well, if you killed him, there are 10 million other sons of bitches in the world. So you'll always run into sons of bitches. You can't kill all the sons of bitches. Disassociate. Okay? No, I'm not saying the guy's a son of a bitch. I'm just saying that they are to you. If they aren't, disassociate yourself. If a guy says you should love your mother, do you know my mother? No, well, she killed 10 cats and 10 dogs and 2 sisters that I had. Do that. I said, well, I can see your point there. But they can't see, don't associate with your mother if her values are different than yours. But if you spell out the values, she tried to choke me 4 times, and I was sent to the hospital. That's why I don't call her anymore. I said, yeah, I can understand that. How can he not understand that? But your own mother, you don't want to see? Give him a reason, even though it's fictitious, so he can understand you. The trouble is, we project like mad. into other people. So if you still have conflict, you didn't hear a word I said, or you didn't think about it. Does that make sense to you, what I said? Right. And if you're tired, and somebody says, I want to talk to you about some conflict we have, just say, I'm very tired now, I have a headache, I'm not open as I would be tomorrow morning. Just state your condition. Say, I'm too tired, my horse just died, and my wife was in an automobile accident, I can't talk to you about it now. I'm less rational. You can do that. So if you're the measure of your own abilities. You're the one that knows you have a pounding headache and you can't talk about conflict resolution. Do you understand that? That's what, when people say, know thyself, what the hell are they talking about? Very few people know themselves, because themselves are a composite of all the people they've known. When you say know yourself, to really know yourself, you should be somewhat aware of the major influences in your life. Going to church, staying on the job, never quitting, always do everything the boss says, whether he's right or wrong. If you do that, you can hold a job a long time. But is that what you want? You want to be humiliated all the time too? So that's up to you. Vacate when you have to. You know what I mean? If you can't solve a problem with a person, disengage. Unless the person says, what went wrong in our relationship? Then you can say, nothing went wrong. We think differently about the same things. She wants to hang all the communists. He wants to hang all the socialists. You know what I mean? Are they wrong? No. They have a different set. Getting mad at them does not alter the set. Getting mad is a good thing in this society. So I know several people that bought a punching bag. You know what that is? When they come from work, they punch all day long. That's the boss. Whoever the hell, they put a picture of a guy on the punching bag. And that gives them some degree of relief. But maximum relief is knowing where they're coming from. The guy says, I've been a member for 20 years of the Ku Klux Klan. That tells you where he's coming from. And if you can't understand that, you're going to have a lot of problems. Understanding other people means understanding where they're coming from. I said, no matter what you say, you'll always have conflict. That isn't true. Conflict is generated by one or the other person. And it's also projection based on what you assume ought to happen. The guy should appreciate what you told him. Not necessarily. They may kill you. Not appreciate. If you explain to a soldier that the war in Vietnam was false, was just to make money, he may shoot you or want to choke you. That's his reaction to your statement. You said, I said it for his own good. That's reason. Has nothing to do with anything. A person may beat the shit out of you for nothing. A great big guy walked over to me once. I was seated in a bar only once. He says, you're sitting in my seat. Southern. So I said, that's right, and I got up. But why take a chance of being pounded against the wall for some jackass? If a guy is tall, big, and strong, and he insults my mother, calls her a goddamn bitch and a whore, I just walk right on. I don't say, what did you say about my mother? He said, I said she was a goddamn bitch and a whore. And he picks me up in the air and he throws me against a brick wall. Did that solve anything? Will you let that guy say that to you? Yes, I do let him say that to me. It's better than having you thrown against the wall. The guy is insane to start with. But I got my rights. No, that's all bullshit. If a guy insults you in the presence of others, just let it go. There's nothing to be gained by saying, would you mind repeating that? I said, fuck you and your family. You say, okay, and you walk away. The guy has a Casper milquetoast. But you don't associate with those kind of people that have those values anyway. I took my mother to an insane asylum. And some guy called her out and said, "You goddamn old bit." And then somebody else said something insulting. And I said to my mother, "What do you think?" She said, "Well, they're all sick here." I said, "Mother, when you leave here, a lot of people are sick too." See, she swallowed that. She let it go. She didn't get mad at the people. She said they're mentally ill. But when you went into the normal world, the guy says, "Obama's a communist, socialist, pig, whatever, nigger, whatever he is." You just let it go, because that's where the guy's at. I don't think he turned to you and said, "What do you think of my views of Obama?" Did he? Okay. That's sane. There are very few sane people that say, "What do you think of my proposition?" Or, "What do you think of the Venus Project?" Well, if he says it will never work, I can't do anything with that. He says, "Your round building will not accommodate all those people," then I can deal with that. If he says your roads aren't wide enough and your electric generators will not supply lights, I can deal with that. But I can't deal with it'll never work. Well, I don't want to live in that. That's a personal value system. If he says, "What's the benefit of that?" Your rent is 1/2. You never have debt. There's no private banks. All the profits go to the whole community. If he can't see that, he owns a big establishment as a rule. You understand? Vested interest, it's called. If a man owns a large industrial plant, he's not interested in economics or an extra $50 a week. He makes $5,000 a week. Why should he listen to you? That's called vested interest.
You're just going to snap this.
You should have a trained alligator. It seems to me with appropriate education, behavior that's irrelevant to a situation will rarely occur. Because in the early training of children in schools, they learn what it means to have relevant information. And irrelevant information, what if people come from another world and attack us? Well, there's no other people on other worlds that are preparing to attack us that we know of. It's suppositions that are irrelevant. Now, I would say that children in the future will think in terms of the events that they're familiar with. And they will deal with problems we are familiar with, not things that are supposed to occur. So you have less speculative types of behavior and more referential behavior, behavior that corresponds with the nature of things. Of course, you got a lot of remnants of old world behavior, but that's the purpose of the new schools. That's the purpose of a resource-based economy, to plow through all the old values and irrelevancies and outgrow the need for inefficiency of that kind. Otherwise, a new social system is not new unless it changes things. But if people say, "Well, I like your ideas, but I like the old world," then you'll have old world problems. There is no way to surpass problems unless you invent new ways and different approaches. If you all want to cling to the same old values, you're going to have the same old problems. People say they're interested in a better life for all people. Without a description of what they mean by a better life, you don't know what they're talking about. Are they talking about a house like Aunt Minnie has, or driving a Mercedes? This has nothing to do with a better life. This has to do with personal advantage. A better life can provide personal advantage. A better life can provide personal advantage for everyone, rather than just a selected few. A reservoir takes care of millions of people. A water tank above your home takes care of you. Filters in a reservoir can maintain the cleanliness of waters. But hoping that things work out is part of the old world. Unfortunately, efficient systems are used by the Army. They train people to be excellent at handling anti-aircraft guns, aircraft, procedural systems and landing under adverse conditions. And there is nothing else but the best knowledge we've accumulated. And that's what we instruct people in. Unfortunately, it's used by military systems. In the future, more appropriate behavior will be out there for people to learn how to use it, how to access information if they don't know how to use it, where to get information, rather than your brother-in-law telling you things, unless he's qualified. I would say that people will have much greater access to useful information, which can be immediately converted and proven, whereas other systems are not. Politics in no way deals with anything real, just the opinions of different people. And a lot of people say, well, is this a kind of a dictatorship? Well, when you get licensed to drive a car, your license is based on your ability to perform. That's a dictatorship. When you fly an airplane, you can't land any place. You have to contact the tower and tell them what your flight is and when you're coming in. In other words, it's all procedural. In the Navy, when you operate aircraft carriers, the landing systems are all procedural. Otherwise you'd have chaos. So you have traffic lights that are controlled to handle variations in traffic. All procedural systems. In fact, you'll see a lot of signs on parking lots. No left turn. Or no right turn when you leave the parking lot. Those are procedural systems to minimize accidents. If you have a better system, put the better system forward. Let's hear about it. But in the meantime, operation of ocean liners are all according to procedural systems. Docking, unloading, all that are procedural systems. If the procedure hasn't worked out, then they have a study group that studies different procedures and how effective they are. So, is the future a dictatorship? In procedural systems, yes. When you go to work for any corporation today, the minute you punch that time clock, you're under the dictates of that corporation. They don't ask you what you'd like to do today, how would you like to spend the day. They give you an assignment. You're to check this out or check that out, or you're to drill so many holes or build this unit. Until you leave the plant, you're free of that dictatorship. Everybody fears a dictatorship. The procedures used by an ophthalmologist on examining your eyes is a procedural system based on the complaints that you have. If you tell them you have shooting pains in the eyes, or you see floaters in front of the eyes, or you see cylindrical forms, whatever you tell him determines the procedure. If you have certain types of pain in the chest, or certain types of headaches in the frontal lobe, or the visual hemispheres, or the temporal lobe, that gives the doctor the procedural system. Remember, all professions use procedural systems. But don't compare that with the dictatorship, the private dictates of a man like Hitler, or some king that has some pet peeve. That is not what I'm talking about. Procedural systems are how to escape a burning building. Procedural systems is don't use elevators if there's smoke in the building or fire in the building. That's procedures worked out. So it's not a dictatorship in the sense that somebody is manipulating you for their own advantage. That I would consider offensive, not a procedural system. If your landing gear doesn't come down on an airplane, there's a way to put that plane down that lessens the probability of a lot of casualties. But that's based upon tests procedural system. Do you understand the difference between a procedural system and dictatorship? Dictatorship is pet values put out by an individual with no basis. So I see the future as having more and safer procedural systems for the benefit of saving lives of people. Lifeguards have a procedural system. That's how they qualify. Airline pilots have to pass certain procedural tests. That's how they qualify. Architects, engineers have to work along certain procedural lines. So if the word procedure scares you, it's your own projections that are frightful, not procedural systems. Procedural systems are methods of making a safer landing under adverse conditions. We will never accomplish total procedural systems. We're always in the process of learning. Learning means to find out which procedure works the best. And we say this is the best we know up to now. That doesn't mean it's the best procedural system. With new inventions and new sensory devices, we'll be able to get closer approximations of safer conduct for people. It looks, of course, to normal people, it looks like some kind of dictatorship. But there's always a dictatorship. If you want your flying pilot's license, you have to be able to land, you have to be able to handle an airplane according to the best known procedures today. Otherwise you can't get your license. The same for driving an automobile. Blind people can't get driver's license until some sensory car is designed that can take you anywhere you want to go. Then blind people will be able to get in the car and go. When that procedural system is worked out, presently they're working on cars that drive themselves. They're working on cars that know when they need a repair, and they will blink and tell you that they're a week behind or that you're a month behind in having the car checked out. At a later date, the car itself will determine when it goes in for procedural system. A checkup, in other words. That's what a physical checkup is for. They recommend physical checkups for those that can afford it. If you don't have a job and can't afford it, you have to delay it. So what good is a procedural system if you don't have the money to carry it out? So a monetary system does not really give people the best procedural system. Their purchasing power does. So I know very few people that live in the kind of house they want to live in, or that drive the kind of hot car that they want. They drive what they can afford. They live in what they can afford. They see the doctors they can afford, never the best. They can't select conditions depending on your purchasing power. So you're limited by the dictates of your purchasing power. Every system is a dictatorship. Some are false in that they serve the vested interests rather than all the individuals. I would say that the process of capitalism serves the interests of those in control. The majority of people are not served by the capitalist system, or the communist system, or the socialist system, because there's no procedural system worked out that I have observed that offers people the best, because they don't even know what the best is. They don't even have a social design. When communists build cities, they're the same as our cities. When they build automobiles, they're the same as our automobiles. They don't seem to have a procedural system that makes communism worth it, that makes socialism worth it. The fascists have a procedural system for keeping them in power. Those that are elitists, that are already in power. This is their procedural system. It's designed to keep them in power, not to benefit humanity. I think that the Venus Project is the only project that I know of, a resource-based economy that's designed to enhance the lives of all people. And if there's anything you don't like about it, or if there's anything you think won't work, bring it up. We're very interested. Nothing is final. Everything can be improved. We want the input of many different people to make the system better, never perfect.